Welcome back to Roots and Roasts. Today's feature is one of those plants that turns heads without shouting for attention. Ctenanthe Setosa, commonly known as the gray star. Its silvery matte leaves with bold emerald green veins aren't just beautiful. They're an evolutionary response to life under a shaded canopy in the Brazilian Atlantic forest. This plant doesn't chase the sun. It's adapted to thrive in low-light, high-humidity environments, and that alone makes it one of the more nuanced houseplants to grow indoors. Here's what makes this episode different. We're not just reviewing surface-level tips. We're giving you proven horticultural techniques based on first-hand experience, peer-reviewed botanical research, and direct observation in controlled environments. So whether you're brand new to plant care or a seasoned grower looking to dial in your setup, this video will give you the step-by-step protocol to get the most out of your gray star, from lighting to watering, repotting to pest prevention. This plant is part of the Marantaceae family, sometimes called prayer plants because of how their leaves fold up in the evening, a natural behavior called nyctinasty. But unlike calatheas or marantas, the gray star doesn't just ask for humidity. It expects environmental stability. That's why generic care advice isn't enough. We'll be walking through how to match its native ecosystem as closely as possible, indoors, and how to avoid the most common mistakes that lead to stress, crisping, and root failure. Let's get into the science, the care protocol, and the small details that make a big difference so your gray star not only survives, but flourishes. Before we talk about what your Ctenanthe Setosa gray star needs indoors, we need to understand where it comes from. This species is native to the Atlantic forest of Brazil, known locally as the Mata Atlantica. Unlike the Amazon, this biome hugs the southeastern coast and stretches through São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Bahia, and Espírito Santo. It's a global biodiversity hotspot, and it's where plants like the gray star evolved under very specific conditions. In the wild, Ctenanthe Setosa doesn't grow in open spaces. It thrives in the lower understory, where sunlight is filtered through dense layers of canopy foliage. Humidity often ranges between 65 to 95%, and the temperature rarely drops below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, even at night. The soil it calls home is rich with decomposing leaf litter, fungal networks, and consistent moisture, but always well-drained thanks to the thick humus layer and sloping terrain. Let's talk about lighting, one of the most misunderstood elements in tropical foliage care. Despite its reputation, Ctenanthe Setosa gray star does not want low light. It thrives in bright, indirect light, just like what it receives under the dense tree canopy in Brazil. Write this down. Bright indirect light is not dim. It's filtered, strong enough to support photosynthesis without leaf damage. PPFD, or photosynthetic photon flux density, measures the amount of usable light that hits your plant's leaves. For Ctenanthe Setosa, you want a PPFD of 75 to 150 mol/m superscript 2/s during a 10 to 12 hour photo period. This mimics the diffuse sunlight of a tropical morning, strong enough to fuel photosynthesis, but gentle enough to protect the delicate chlorophyll structures from UV damage. Place your gray star in a spot that gets strong, filtered morning light or sustained ambient brightness throughout the day. Avoid direct sun hitting the leaves. This can cause irreversible damage, including bleaching and crisping of the leaf margins. Plants show you what they're experiencing, if you know how to read them. Inadequate light will cause your gray star to lose contrast and pattern. Too much direct light will damage cell walls, especially on newer, more vulnerable leaves. When you match this plant's native lighting conditions, filtered, rhythmic, and stable, you'll notice something right away. New growth arrives more often. Leaf color deepens, and your gray star finally starts living up to its name. If there's one part of Ctenanthe care that trips people up more than any other, it's watering. And here's the truth. Overwatering doesn't just mean too much water. It means watering before the soil has dried enough. That distinction is everything. The right amount of water depends on container size, soil type, and environmental conditions. As a baseline, a 6-inch pot will need around 3/4 cup every 5 to 7 days. An 8-inch pot will need closer to 1 1/4 cups, spaced about 6 to 8 days apart. But that's just a starting point. You need to factor in your home's temperature, airflow, and humidity. To be precise, use a moisture meter. Insert it halfway between the plant base and the edge of the pot. You're looking for a reading in the low to mid moist zone before rewatering. No meter? Use the finger test. Stick your finger in up to the second knuckle. If the top 1.5 inches are dry, it's time. Water should drain fully through the bottom of the pot within 10 to 30 seconds. If it doesn't, or if it pools on the surface, your soil may be compacted, and it's time to aerate or repot. Ctenanthe Setosa is chemically sensitive. Tap water often contains fluoride, chlorine, or heavy metals that show up as brown leaf edges or tips over time. Instead, use one of the following: filtered water, rainwater. Let tap water sit out overnight to dechlorinate. And always water with room temperature water. Cold water can shock the roots. When it comes to watering, consistency and clarity win. If you learn to read your soil, not your calendar, your gray star will reward you with lush, upright growth and steady new leaves. And as always, if your plant starts acting off, check the roots before you panic. Water problems show up below the soil first. Most plant issues begin and end in the root zone. That's why soil structure and drainage aren't just technical preferences. They're non-negotiable. If your gray star is planted in the wrong medium or a poorly designed pot, it doesn't matter how perfect your watering or lighting is. The roots will struggle. Write this down. A plant's success is built on 3 invisible layers: soil texture, oxygen flow, and drainage speed. Your gray star needs a soil mix that holds moisture without suffocating the roots. A good mix should be light and airy, well-draining, organic rich, but not dense. Here's a proven, balanced formula. 2 parts high-quality indoor potting mix, 1 part chunky orchid bark or cocoa husk, adds aeration and structure. 1 part perlite or pumice, promotes rapid drainage. Optional, activated charcoal, keeps soil biologically fresh by reducing pathogens and odor. Avoid straight peat moss or cactus/succulent mixes. One holds too much moisture, the other dries out too fast. Let's talk containers. Your plant doesn't care how pretty the pot is, it cares how well it drains. There are 3 kinds of containers most growers use. Terracotta, breathable, wicks excess moisture, ideal for humid homes. It can dry out faster, monitor more often. Plastic nursery pots, lightweight, affordable, easy to monitor roots through holes. Always pair with a decorative cache pot for looks. No drainage pots like sealed ceramics, high risk for root rot, require surgical watering precision. These are not recommended for gray star unless you're highly experienced. If your container doesn't have a drainage hole, you're not just guessing, you're gambling. When you water your gray star, the water should begin to drain within 10 to 20 seconds and finish within a minute. If it sits on top, your soil is compacted. If it rushes out in 2 seconds flat, it's too loose, likely drying out too fast. Healthy drainage also creates oxygen flow in the rhizosphere. That's the root zone ecosystem. Without oxygen, roots rot. With too much air and not enough retention, the plant wilts. Ctenanthe Setosa doesn't like to be root-bound, but it also doesn't want to be overwhelmed by too much space. Repotting is about timing and balance, giving the plant what it needs before it starts showing symptoms of stress. These signs indicate that your plant has outgrown its current container, or the soil has become hydrophobic or compacted. Both scenarios limit nutrient uptake and root respiration. Always repot during the active growing season, ideally in early spring through early summer. Avoid repotting in winter unless absolutely necessary. During cold months, your plant's energy is focused on survival, not regeneration, and root disturbance can lead to setback or even decline. When you repot with purpose, not panic, you reset the entire foundation of your plant's health. The gray star may not tell you in words, but give it the right container, the right soil, and the right timing, and it will respond with fresh growth, stronger leaves, and a far more resilient root system. Fertilizing isn't about dumping nutrients. It's about matching your plant's rhythm. Ctenanthe Setosa is a moderate feeder that responds best to consistent, balanced nutrition during its active growth cycle. When you see numbers like 10-10-10 or 20-20-20 on a fertilizer bottle, that's your NPK ratio. For foliage plants like the gray star, we want a balanced or mildly nitrogen-lean blend to promote lush, even leaf growth, not leggy stretch or nutrient burn. Recommended products: synthetic, October 10th, 10 or 20-20-20 liquid houseplant fertilizer, diluted to half strength. Organic, worm castings, fish emulsion, seaweed extract, slower, gentler release. In spring and summer, Feed every 10 to 14 days, but always dilute to half strength. In fall, space out feedings. And in winter, stop altogether unless your plant is under artificial light and actively growing. Choose based on your rhythm. If you're checking your plants weekly, liquid feeding gives you the most control. If you travel often or forget, slow-release pellets are a safe option, but they don't offer the fine-tuning liquid does. Feeding your gray star isn't about pouring in power. It's about steady support. When you fertilize thoughtfully, you don't just keep it alive, you give it the metabolic fuel to push out healthier, faster, and more vibrant foliage month after month. Let's talk about the atmosphere your gray star expects. In its native habitat, the Atlantic forest of Brazil, this plant exists in a climatic sweet spot: high humidity, constant warmth, filtered air flow, stable light cycles. To help it thrive indoors, your job is to recreate these conditions as closely as possible. That starts with humidity. Ctenanthe Setosa is not a low-humidity houseplant. When ambient moisture drops below 50%, you'll start to see browning leaf edges, folded or curled leaves by mid-afternoon, static, unmoving foliage at night. These aren't cosmetic issues. They're signals of water stress at the cellular level. The plant is losing moisture faster than it can absorb through roots and stomata. Gray star prefers a warm, stable climate. Sudden drops in temperature, like leaving it near a drafty window in winter, can shock the plant's vascular system, causing droop, leaf loss, or even root shutdown. Likewise, avoid placing it near hot west-facing glass in summer or directly beneath HVAC vents. Consistency is more important than extremes. This is a plant of equatorial rhythm, not seasonal swing. Even in ideal conditions, indoor plants like Ctenanthe Setosa can face threats. The key to keeping your gray star healthy isn't just care, it's awareness. Let's go over the most common pests and stress signals you'll see, and how to treat them with confidence, not panic. Spider mites thrive in dry air and stagnant conditions. They feed by puncturing leaf cells, draining chlorophyll, and leaving a speckled, faded look behind. They multiply quickly, especially under dry, warm grow lights. Mealybugs are sap-sucking insects that hide in tight spots and protect themselves with a waxy coating. If left unchecked, they'll weaken new growth and open the plant to secondary infections. Not every issue is pest-related. If your plant shows stress, pause and inspect. Often the problem lies below the soil line or in the air around the plant. The healthiest plants are the ones monitored regularly. Even 5 minutes a week spent checking for pests, wiping dust, and evaluating soil moisture will save you hours of future stress. Think of your gray star like a rainforest understory plant under your care, not just to grow, but to be protected. Stay proactive, stay observant, and remember, the earlier you spot the signs, the faster your plant bounces back stronger than before. Let's finish this with what we call the roots and roast pro tips. Things that most care cards won't tell you, but that every experienced grower learns through hands-on practice. Every 7 to 10 days, run a 5-point visual and tactile check. Touch the soil, rotate the pot, observe leaf movement, wipe any dust. Scan for pests. It's faster than watering blind, and more effective than reacting to leaf damage after it's happened. Lift the pot before and after you water. You'll develop a sense of hydration based on weight. This gives you a foolproof backup to moisture meters or finger tests. Don't leave light exposure to chance. Use a timer with your grow light, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. This creates a natural circadian rhythm that supports nyctinastic leaf movement and new leaf development. Using tap water with fluoride or chlorine, that's a silent killer for Ctenanthe. Switch to filtered, distilled, or dechlorinated water and monitor for brown tips to disappear over time. Want the designer look without sacrificing drainage? Use a simple nursery pot inside your ceramic planter and elevate it with a plastic riser or a few flat stones inside the cache pot. This protects the roots from water pooling at the bottom. This was Ctenanthe Setosa Gray Star, and now you've got the real knowledge to make it thrive. No guesswork, no myths, just proven care for real plant people. Thank you for growing with us. We'll see you in the next episode of Roots and Roasts.